Thanks so much. Oh, no. Sit down. Thank you. Thanks. Great to be back in Sarasota. We're joined by our state's First Lady, my wife, Casey. We also have our Secretary, Department of Children and Families, Siobhan Harris, our DEM, Emergency Management Director, Kevin Guthrie, and then we've got Sandra Tabfume, Emergency Management Chief here in Sarasota County, and then our really carrying a lot of clout legislative leaders, Senator Jim Boyd and Representatives McFarland and Robinson. So I want to thank them for all their work and thank them for being here. So we've recently, of course, had Hurricane Debby, and when you have these storms, there's a lot of different things that can happen. We've had storms like Hurricane Michael, which hit the Panhandle in 2018, that was almost like a tornado going through, Category 5 winds, and could obliterate things. We also have storms like Debby that just leave a lot of water, and so it's not that the winds are knocking over all the buildings, but it's just areas are taking a lot of water, and we saw that from Sarasota, Bradenton, all the way up to north central Florida, where we saw the water get really, really high. So we prepare for whatever may come down the pike, and so for this storm, we had 17,000 linemen and utility crews ready to assist as soon as the storm passed. We activated the Florida National Guard and State Guard, and we had 2,400 guardsmen ready to go. We had 7 urban search and rescue teams. We had tarps, meals, bottles of water stationed, ready to go. We've distributed a number of the meals and bottles of water and some of the tarps immediately after the storm. But you're doing this, Florida Department of Transportation, clear the streets, make sure the bridges can be open. All these things happen, and we had, because of the linemen there, we had 675,000 accounts power restored within like 48 hours. And compare that, Houston got a storm similar to Debby, and they had millions of people without power for a long time. So this is not something that is the norm in terms of how these responses work. So we appreciate that. But basically our view is we'd rather be prepared, over-prepared, and on this storm we were over-prepared. There were things that we did not need to deploy that we had ready, but we'd rather do that and be able to meet the needs. And then when things happen, we improvise. I mean, when they had the bridges that were knocked out in Ian, those weren't our bridges at the state level. They asked for help. We went in, we got those back up and running and connected people to their homes again. When we had some of the utility companies, the cooperatives and some of these in Southwest Florida that weren't really moving forward as fast on the power restoration, we surged mutual aid. We had these linemen from other companies show up to be able to get it done. And that's just kind of the way that we see things. Now, this storm is the first storm that included Hope, Florida. So Hope, Florida was spearheaded by the First Lady several years ago, and the impetus for it is just the recognition that government cannot solve all these problems that we deal with as a people. And particularly when you start talking about people that are less fortunate, they may need a hand up. Putting people on a dependency on government is not going to lead to them being able to realize their dreams, and we've seen a lot of government bureaucracies fail. So what Hope Florida sought to do is to recognize we have all these resources throughout our communities, our churches, our charities, individual volunteers, businesses that want to help, that we can tap into. And so rather than think government and be in that silo, let's use government as a way to connect people in need to all these great resources throughout our community. And so that's been applied to things like the Department of Children and Families. And since that has launched, I guess probably about a year and a half into it now, there have been 30,000 people who have either completely or partially eliminated the need for any public assistance at all. So you're moving people to a pathway to self-sufficiency where they're going to be able to do very well. So it's better for those folks. It's also better for the taxpayers. And so based on our efforts so far, Hope Florida related initiatives are projected to save taxpayers almost $1 billion over the next 10 years. Why? Why? Because you have needs. Those needs are being met by all these great resources we have. So first of all, that's less government tax money needs to go, but then you're also getting people on a road to self-sufficiency, so they're not going to be back in a year or 18 months, most likely, needing taxpayer assistance. So it's a great model. So it started with the Department of Children and Families. It's now in a lot of our other agencies, Department of Elder Affairs, Veterans Affairs, we're working to integrate it there. And this is something that's really meaningful. And just as a veteran, one of the observations I had, I remember when I left active duty, I got like a packet, transition packet. Look, I didn't need anything, I was fine. But I couldn't even understand. It was all bureaucracy. And so you have a VA, it's a massive bureaucracy. You have problems with connecting veterans to benefits or even help. But yet I look in Florida, we've got so many different groups that are designed to help veterans. We've got businesses that want to contribute to help veterans. We have all this. So why not use that as a way to link the veteran with all these great resources? And it may be mental health resources which are there in these groups. It may be things involving job placement. So this is something that's really, really significant. I think it's been a home run. We have other states that have come down here, studied what we're doing with Hope Florida, and then they're implementing it in their states, respectively. I mean, that's I think, a telltale sign that this has been successful. So we're here today on the heels of Hurricane Debby to announce that Hope Florida will now become a permanent component of the Florida Division of Emergency Management and our responses to natural disasters. This expansion is going to be called Activate Hope. This will travel. Activate Hope will go directly to the communities impacted by the disaster to help connect Floridians with outside resources to provide food, household goods, home repairs, as more. And first of all, just those resources that will be connected are important, because what we've seen is there's a lot of resources out there. When disaster strikes, we have groups that their sole mission is to respond to disaster. Some affiliated with the church, some of them other types of private initiatives, and they want to help. But one of the things that happens when disaster strikes is a lot of times people just don't know where to turn. It's confusing, it's very stressful. And so Hope Florida can really serve as a way that if you go to the Hope bus, they're going to be able to point you in the right direction. They're going to have these resources that they're going to be linked with. And I think it's going to be really, really significant. Now, we do have what's called, so one of the First Lady's insights was you had bureaucrats in like the Department of Children and Families talking about some type of maybe a TANF grant or something. We've transformed that into what's called Hope Navigators. So the job of the person working in the Department of Children and Family is to navigate the person in need through all the available resources apart from government, and to help actively link them with those resources that are there. So we are going to have Hope Navigators as part of this. We are also going to use state employees who volunteer to help with the disaster. And it's like, disasters come and go. I mean, we prepare for them. We don't always have them. So it's not like you're just going to have a massive people on payroll for the whole time. You surge when these things happen. So we'll be having people integrate into Activate Hope from other state agencies on basically a volunteer basis, because what we found is folks volunteer anyways. And so now we have a great way for them to do it in a way that's going to be most meaningful. So you're going to have, and we saw it in after Debby in some of the areas, we have a Hope bus, and you'll have Activate Hope will be working out of the Hope bus. They will be at any pods, points of distribution sites, and this is when people can drive their car through. They get food, water, ice, tarps after disasters. We also set up the small business recovery centers. We set up other multi-agency resource centers. So this is going to be a one-stop shop, and that Hope bus will really play a central role. So we've already seen this start after Hurricane Debby. We had the Hope bus both in Sarasota and in the Big Bend. Hope Navigators and volunteers have provided service to over 300 people just in the aftermath of Debby, which, while it did leave significant water in pockets, compared to like a Hurricane Ian, what was a storm that was less strong in that respect and had less impacts across our state than some of the other ones that we know about. So 300, that's pretty significant for the first time out of the gate, and I think you're going to see that only grow as we go forward. So I'm excited about this. I think it's going to be really, really good to be able to have this. If you are a Floridian who is impacted by Hurricane Debby, you can actually now visit hopeflorida.com, and you can click on Hurricane Debby Recovery at the top of the page to get help. And the thought is that when these disasters happen, if you go to Hope Florida, we'll have, and hopefully we don't have any more this season, but you will have the name disaster. People can click, and then they can see the resources that are available. And there's so many different things that happen. I mean, after Ian, we had these charities that come in, and they'll muck and gut the houses for the residents, and particularly for elderly. It's a big positive. And then they'll help restore the people's homes, fix their roofs, do all kinds of things. A lot of people have no idea that that's something that can be available. Even little things like Chick-fil-A setting up a site. You know, if you don't have power in a given community, to be able to get a hot meal, Chick-fil-A goes, other different food vendors go. That makes a huge, huge difference for people. So this is all going to be on the website, and I think that's going to help folks a lot. Additionally, we're also happy to announce that our new toll-free Hope line at 833-GET-HELP is active today for Floridians to call, 833-GET-HELP, and that will be something where people can be pointed in the right direction. So I'm excited about this. I think that this is a way we could easily rest on the laurels. If you look at disaster response in Florida compared to just about everywhere else, I mean, it's night and day. What Kevin and his team have done, what your local folks here in Sarasota and other parts have been able to do, really working well to be efficient and effective at doing this. And you go back and look at some of these other responses. I mean, you know, how did New Orleans handle Katrina? How did the Louisiana handle Katrina? Not very good. How did Hurricane Andrew, when that hit in '92, I mean, it was like almost a war zone down there for a long time. You just didn't have the same level of really rapid response. And so we're doing that at the state of Florida. We're proud of that. The power restoration, I think we set a record with Ian with the fastest power restoration. It was like 3 million people in a relatively short period of time. Then Idalia last year, not quite as many, but even faster. And then I think this one was probably the fastest, right? If you look at it was in rural areas, which some of those are harder to do. So that's great, and we want to strive to do well. But it's like, okay, you don't just rest on that. How can you do better? And I think one of the things that we've seen is just people are confused when these disasters strike. They don't always know where to turn. Well, Activate Hope is really gonna help remedy that, and Activate Hope is going to be something where people know you find that Hope bus. It's not just about what that particular part of state government can do. Far from it. That is the kind of node that is connected to all these different other areas, and I think it's going to really be a force multiplier for Kevin and his team. I mean, Kevin has handled a lot of this, quite frankly, himself in his agency, but really, he shouldn't have to be navigating, where the barbecue is going to go in Madison County versus where this is going somewhere else, or how many. Let's get this under this umbrella and be able to provide people with a menu of options to be able to help them when they're in need. So I want to thank the First Lady. I want to thank Siobhan Harris. I want to thank Kevin Guthrie for really integrating this thoughtfully in a way that's really going to make an impact. And so with that, I'm pleased to introduce the star of the show herself, my wife.
I don't know about that, but I'll say this is the best team in the business, with the governor's leadership and obviously with the people sitting to my right and many more people who are behind the scenes when an emergency happens. They activate and they know what they need to do to help people in need. And this is really just the next layer upon that. And it's really humbling and heartwarming to be here to expand Hope Florida and the philosophy behind it, because I really think of people that the governor and myself have been able to help in storms. We've been out with the Southern Baptist Convention. We have been at food distribution lines where people are driving up in their cars. And I'll never forget, there was a mother with 2 kids in the back seat. We rolled down the window and the governor and I went over and we were helping to give food and whatever aid that she needed, and she just had tears in her eyes because she wasn't sure what to do next. Her home had flooding, there was mold, there wasn't electricity at the time, although as they were getting the restoration up and faster than anybody else, but she was just uncertain of what to do next. And how nice is it now to know that there is one number that you can call and talk to a human being who is there to be able to help navigate you through all of the resources that are already there. It's all there. You have the faith-based communities who are willing to step up and help. You have the nonprofits. You have the private sector who's willing to donate money or to supply volunteer hours to be able to help. It's all there. It's how do you make the connection with the people in need to help them find the help that they deserve in an emergency. And so that's why this is very exciting, and it makes perfect sense for why it would be a part of the Department of Emergency Management. And so I think of that mom, now she will know. You can call 833-GET-HOPE. You call that number and you're going to be able to talk to someone who will navigate you to be able to find whatever you might need to be able to get through whatever it might be. And so this has been very heartwarming to be able to see this expand and grow by leaps and bounds. And I just, as the governor and I both, we never want to see anyone suffer. And so that's the whole impetus behind why we started Hope Florida, is because there is hope and there is help out there, particularly exterior of government. You have all of these great people who are willing and able to help. They just need to know where to turn. And now we've created the apparatus to be able to make the connection and then get out of the way so people can have a little bit of hope. So I'm happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Governor, for helping with this mission.